Call to order the April 21st, 2025 Availability and Opportunities Committee meeting of the Board of Education of Hinsdale Township High School District 86. The meeting is being held in the District Administrative Center. The time is 6:31. Please call roll.
Member Roman.
Here.
Member Akras. Here. Member Waters.
Here. Please stand if you're able to join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hi there. All right. And I don't see any community members signed up. So our next agenda item is approved prior meeting minutes. May I have a motion to approve the March 17th, 2025 A&O Committee meeting minutes?
So moved. Akras.
Second?
Discussion? Please call roll.
Member Roman.
Aye.
Member Akras.
Aye.
Member Waters.
Aye.
Approved. Three. Moving on to 3.1, committee members, community representatives, and the general public. The A&O committee members are pleased to welcome our selected community representatives. Thank you for joining us in this work. So Helen, Nagla, Victoria, Lana, Kim, Gus, thank you. If you would,
Can they introduce themselves?
that's getting right to that. If you could please just each introduce yourselves. Going around, starting on my left.
3 minutes total. Minimum.
Should I put on
I'll
the
take
timer?
30 seconds. I'm Gus Zervis. We live in the central zone. We've been here since 2017. I have 3 kids now in school, 2 freshmen and a junior at Central, and one that graduated last year. I love this district. I care about this district. The topic is of concern for me because we're in an area where a lot of people that live around me don't all go to Central, they go to South. And I hear from a lot of them, and I think that everyone should be able to get the classes that they get, and that, that's important to me, and it's important to us too. There's classes my kids haven't gotten at Central. So I'd like to be part of the solution.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Victoria Hinderleiter. I am a Hinsdale South parent. I have 4 kids. One who graduated last year, a junior, 8th grader, and a 7th grader. So an incoming freshman. And I want, obviously, classes to run at South. I think it's super important that all kids at both schools have opportunity. And I also want to be part of the solution.
Thank you. Thank you, Victoria.
I'm Nagla Patu. I have a sophomore at South, and then I have an 8th grader, rising freshman, and then a 3rd grader at Tower West. So I'm also here because I'd love to be a part of the solution. I know that there are challenges at both schools for kids for different reasons to access the courses that they need, want. I think high school is such an important time for our kids to explore career pathways, to try to figure out what it is that gets them excited, because that's how they decide what they want to do with the rest of their lives. And we've been in the position with my sophomore where she didn't get a class, and so which is fine, it is what it is, but again, just being able to use some of our experiences to help shape and inform the solution.
Thank you.
I'm Kim Notaro. I am the mom of 2 grads, and I'm a grad myself. I actually started working with admin on alignment and how courses go out to the public in 1920, so I've been chasing data forever and what's happening in both schools, and I want to be part of the solution.
All right, thank you.
Okay, my name is Helen DeMattis. I am a substitute in your district. I go to both high schools. I get to see all the students, all the classes from the inside. So it's kind of fun. I have actually a freshman here right now. And before this, I was a substitute in D181. So I've seen everything right now from preschool till 12th grade. And I like what she said in terms of, now is the time we want to get them excited and worry about their career pathway, because they'll always look back to high school and say, yeah, that's where I was able to pick up things. And sports is a big part of it. So, being at the high school has been a really good experience that way. And whatever you need, I'm here to help in whatever capacity
Thank you.
with finding solutions.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us in this work. Before we begin our first discussion item, admin, I'm assuming that's you, Dr. Lai, will provide a brief overview of the ways that each stakeholder group can provide input and engage in the committee's work.
Passing the baton,
Deb?
Dr.
Thanks.
Pedrosa.
I'll do my best. So we've actually structured the agenda to help with this.
Of course.
And it's worked really well for the other committees where we have community engagement. So as you'll see, there's a section on the agenda for discussion with community representatives, and then a discussion of the agenda where there's discussion for just the committee. And obviously, the committee's interested in input from all district stakeholders. We have open meetings, audience comments. You can email the Board of Ed or committee members to provide your input, and your input will be heard here during audience comments. But when we start getting into the agenda discussion, the committee will be engaging the community representatives to and the name speaks as to what your role is. You are representatives of the community, and you're providing input as representatives of the community, advisory input to the committee. The committee will make any final determinations or recommendations that will go up to the board, and they are part of the roll call and any vote that occurs at the committee level, which is likely only on minutes or adjourning into closed session. But that's just basically how the roles will play out. Everyone will have an opportunity to speak and provide input, and we welcome that.
Thank you so much, Deb,
Sure.
for that. Okay, moving on to 3.2. Thank you. So our staffing recap and review. So on March 13th, the board discussed an initial staffing proposal for the next school year and voted to approve the proposal on March 27th. Our first discussion item will be a review of those decisions, the ways that the courses are available, the opportunities in that process.
Okay,
Thank you, sir.
thank you all. Thanks you all for being here. I'm gonna try to lead this discussion and try not to embarrass myself with my computer skills. I'm gonna present this file, but I'm gonna, now I already messed it up. Deb, how do I download this file?
I think on the three dots on the right.
See, this is what I was afraid of.
I
You
think
don't want to just scroll through there?
Nah,
Don't
No, no.
document PDF.
download the current document PDF. There it is. And then I download it. Here we go. So, nothing funny. It was the same document you saw. We just download that one. So we'll do a bit of a recap here. There's no new information here. What we decided to do was take some of the slides about course offerings, stacking, course availability that we talked through with the board and talk about them again with you. These decisions have already been made, but there's a lot of information here, and since we're all just getting started with this work, we thought it would be worthwhile for the community representatives to ask some questions in real time and to sort of understand how we thought about doing all this. I think you'll find that sort of the overall story is we seek to offer lots and lots of courses to students at both schools. There are some fiscal limits and some technical limits to how we do that. And I hope you'll see we were as smart as we could be about all those trade-offs, again, trying to do the best by students. But I'm going to show you some of the details again, and interrupt me anytime you want to sort of ask questions. So all these slides are pulled from these two slide decks that are already in D86 Community. I'm sure you have memorized them by now, but I'll just reiterate some of those. So this was the final proposal that the board approved. This is the 327 board meeting with the total numbers. Again, you can see this column here is the actual numbers that were for the previous year. We had a proposal we did on the 13th of March based on board feedback that was updated on the 27th, and you can see the year-to-year change here. Just a couple caveats. We've talked a bunch. We've moved the Haven program to schools, so you can see there's a 5.4 here and a negative 5.4 here, but that 5.4 has been incorporated in other places. We also have, we wanted to classify the department chairs and assistant department chairs, since they are certified staff and members of the collective bargaining agreement. They were part of this work also, so we included that here. We used the staffing framework. This was a document that essentially has a set of guiding principles. It says what we believe in, and then the framework sets essentially what I think of as the divisors. How many students do you get to fit in a class, essentially? And there's special cases for certain classes. Gym classes have bigger divisors. Some classes are limited by physical space. Like there's only so many pottery wheels in a room, or fume hoods available. So some science classes have different. So all those rules are listed on the staffing framework. This is a bespoke D86 routine to sort of articulate a staffing framework. We do it every year. And I think if you download this, that there's actually a hyperlink to the full document there if you want to do that. So this is the principles and then sort of the formulas we use to do this. We went through, and you'll learn more about this process as you keep rolling up your sleeves and doing this work with her. When we were having discussions about how do we get this all figured out, we came up with sort of 4 principles in that process. And this is principles with an LE, so these are sort of guiding beliefs we did there. Lower class size generally matters. I'm happy to have an offline conversation with you about the research and what the research says about lower class size in high school at some point, but generally it's a good thing, asterisk. Whenever possible, we prioritize low class sizes in English 1, English 2, Algebra 1, and Geometry. Those are key courses, and we wanted to make sure our students who were coming in who needed help in those courses most had a lower class size. Those are the most vulnerable kids, so we wanted to make sure they had the support. We then decided as a principle that multiple periods with stacking is better than singletons. I'll show you some examples of that down the road. If a course is a singleton, that means a student essentially only has a 1 in 8 chance of fitting it in their slot, because they have an 8-period day they can use, and it's harder to make sure all the students who've requested a course, if it's a singleton, get that, because there's other courses they may want. So we decided if we could stack courses, and so have a course run in 2 periods or 3 periods or 4 periods, that was better than to just have those as singletons, because it increases the access there. You can see that as that example. We combined accounting and accounting honors in 4 periods, and that we think is better than 1 period of accounting and 3 periods of accounting hours. Because if you really wanted just that standard level accounting, you have a 1 in 8 chance of getting it, and you may have other conflicts to do that. We know, like, nobody loves stacking. It's not something we are trying to do. We did our best to group similar content. It doesn't make sense to stack an English course and a math course for hopefully obvious reasons, but we tried to sort of lean into the distinctions within each discipline to do this. So, stacking Ceramics 2, Ceramics 3, and AP Studio Art 3D. It's an AP course where students have to create a portfolio of sculpture. It seemed to kind of fit, and so that was, we would lean into those sorts of things there. And then the fourth principle is, if we had courses with low numbers of simple tallies, low course requests, we considered if there was alternates that could be conceived as similar content for students, because we knew there's probably some interest behind that. If we couldn't offer that exact course, if there was something similar, we would do that. So for instance, we recommended canceling a course called Digital Video Production and Graphic Communication 1, but there's another course called Video and Animation 1. There's very similar content. And so
Very similar.
So that's, in that case, we're like, okay, let's cancel those and encourage kids to go into Video and Animation 1. Not the exact same thing. I'm not trying to say it's all the same, but we're trying to sort of figure out the best trade-offs we could make to do that. So these are the principles, and I'll be honest, like, we didn't set these principles first and then try to follow. These sort of came through as we were iterating all the options here, but I think they make sense. There's a whole list of definitions here. I'm not going to go through these. Again, please commit them to memory. It's contingent on your further, never mind. We try to define all the funny words that I'm going to use as we go through and do this. So I'm going to go through some red slides and some yellow slides for the 2 schools, so you can sort of see how those decisions played out. So this is a list of the courses that are low request that we're recommending to run. So a couple, I'll just push on some of the verbiage here. By low request, this means it was less than 15. That was a number in the framework, and we said, look, any course that was less than 15, we're going to bring that to the board, put it on a fancy slide so they could understand what that looked like. And then for each of those, we have a rationale for why we think we should run that, and then what the FTE implication is to do this. You know, Josh isn't here, but remember, each 0.2 FTE translates into roughly $27,000 in staff and benefits. So that's an average salary. If it's a younger teacher, it's less, but that's roughly sort of what that comes to.
And just to clarify, Mike, 1.0 would be the full
Would be, yeah. and
five periods of teaching.
Right, right. And the idea that one FTE is equal to 5 classes, that's governed by the collective bargaining agreement. That's the rule there. So some of the rationale is a capstone. That means this is a terminal course for students who have completed a course of study in that subject. We think if kids have gotten all the way through, we should let them have that final opportunity. So those are the capstones there. The ones that are listed as opportunities, we decided those were important opportunities to keep available in the school. So for instance, French 1 honors, we thought we should, we did some work with some of the other world languages, but we thought we should keep the French option going even at 14, so that's listed as an opportunity that's there. You can see we're recommending stacking AP Music Theory. We had 11 requests, And modern music exploration, we had 2 requests. We thought we could sort of merge those two again, kind of similar content. AP Music Theory is a capstone, modern music is an opportunity. So that's where that came out. Let me do the,
Can I ask a
Let's
question?
do questions
Are you
here, yeah.
stacking the French honors like it's stacked currently? Or are you keeping it separate? Because it is currently a stacked class.
I'd have to get to another slide before I can answer that question. And even then, I'm not sure I'll have it, but we can get that answer. Let me talk a little bit about how we're doing the stacked courses we're recommending to run. Again, the stacked courses is not something we love, but it's sort of something you have to do to sort of to balance these sorts of things out. So for instance, let me talk about, I talked about accounting. I'll do another example of business law because it sort of matches the same thing. We had 14 simple tally requests for business law 1, 227 requests for business law 1 honors. We decided to stack that, so there are 9 sections. And so anybody who had signed up for either business law 1 or business law 1 honors could be in either of those sections. With 9 sections, almost everybody who wanted to take it could get their spot, and that was fine. Similar sort of content. You see similar sorts of things happening here, combining symphony orchestra that had 2 requests with symphony orchestra honors, which had 25 requests. It made sense to put that into one class, as a for instance. Kim, I think I know the answer to your question now. We do not stack level 1 language courses. Because these are kids brand new to a language, so putting French 1 and French 2 together would be really difficult. The French 2 students have had a year of French, the French 1 students would not. Here's a list of the low request courses with a recommendation not to run. So, again, same sort of rule there. You can see the number of course requests is generally pretty low here. At some point we have to have a discussion, and we had this discussion at the board table about what we wanted to do, what we didn't want to do, and how those would play out. You'll note that the board did decide to run pre-calculus. This is from the 313 data, so that one's there. And, there are, the plus sign there means we sort of had a creative need to meet there. So instead of journalism, news writing and reporting, we suggested students go into journalism news magazine. Or German 3, convince people to go into German 3 honors. There's some little pushes you could do there to match those out. And then we had a set of courses that we recommended for students to travel from Central to South. I don't have an update on where this is in the scheduling. There's a cost to do this, and it needs to sort of fit into the schedule. I doubt we'll be able to make all of these options available, but these are ones as we currently work on the schedule that we're trying to do. A similar story at South. Same sort of chart, similar sort of numbers. You note the only thing different here, geometry and construction. It's a course that is new. We had a lot of attention around it. Sadly, one of the teachers who was real passionate about it, he would be on leave this year, which probably negatively impacted our recruitment efforts. Even though there's only 14 students, we said because it's the pilot year 2, it's worth putting 0.4 FTE at it to run that course. And then you can see the others are either opportunities that felt like it was worth doing, or capstone courses. You'll see the biology honors and chemistry honors. There was much discussion and debate about that before I came here. You'll see that those are being sustained.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, you can ask two if you'd like.
For the chemistry honors, for kids, there are only 4 kids at Hinsdale South who requested honors chem, even though all the kids matriculating up from freshman, or is this the kids who did biology first and now are moving, so it's a
Correct.
different chem course?
These are kids who did biology honors last year,
Okay.
and they are now requesting chemistry honors.
And Nagel, I think the point that I would like you to bring out, Mike, is how many kids requested bio last year?
No, I know that was a small
It
number.
was super,
and it was-
yeah.
No, I understand that. I
Yeah.
just, I saw the number and I was very confused
Yeah.
because we have a huge freshman cohort who do take, physics
Yeah.
1 honors, and so.
I think there are
Yeah.
4 bio honors kids now, and
That-
next year it's going from 4 to
Yeah.
9, so that's,
Yeah.
you know.
Instead of physics. Mine's coming freshman.
Okay. Got it, thank you.
Other questions?
Thank you.
Again, more opportunity courses and capstones. You can see that there's some of the stacking we've set up here as well. But same sort of idea. We propose the stack courses again. And again, same sort of process. Again, trying to avoid singletons, grouping classes that seem like they make sense, and trying to manage be fiscally responsible and only do it. These are all elective courses. We're not doing this in the core. Just trying to make that balance. And you certainly can, and people certainly do, argue that we made the wrong decision on 1 or 2 of these, but I think in general, it shows like we're just trying to balance all this out and keep all the students' best interest in mind.
I've seen that at work. I've gone into the glass and metal smithing class and, I'll go through the attendance and then there's another few students that are also taking that class. And so I was like, how is that possible? You're taking 4, you're taking the first one. And then I'm like, stacking makes sense. You have the one person who would be probably teaching it anyway. They have access to all the tools. And so it's better to have something, they can get different projects within the same class. Like if you live in the same house, you don't all have to do the same exact thing. So I think it's great. I think stacking is a real solution to offering things that brings efficiency to the teaching. I think it's a great thing.
It works in some places, like it works in glass.
Better
and
in some
smash-
places, right?
it depends on the nature of the course in some ways too, and we try to balance that. That's more of the same. Here's the low request courses at South that we recommended not to run. Again, this is from 313, and so the board wanted to run pre-calculus, so that one isn't there.
Yeah.
But when I look at this, I see pretty low request numbers.
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
Specifically for music, like concert orchestra, I know there were only 5 kids this year that signed up, but we also didn't run it at South last year because of low numbers. So those kids that are possibly interested in doing music, like classical music, what are their other opportunities to study? Besides outside of school?
5 is a small ensemble. It would be an awesome opportunity.
I can't really speak too much about what happened last year.
Oh, I understand. I'm just saying, I know last year it didn't run because of low
Right,
numbers.
but
This year
in-
it's
but
not
in-
gonna run.
Yeah, but in this case, like, there were 5 kids who wanted to do it.
Mhm.
We could have, the administration, the board could have said, yep, we want to invest in this. But again, that's $27,000 that goes there that we have to take from somewhere else. And those kinds of trade-offs we have to make.
Difficult decisions.
Yeah, there's not, Yeah.
But that's a
You
good
can't- You
question.
can't make everybody happy
Right.
all
Oh, I'm
the
not-
time,
I'm
right?
not-
No, that's an
Right, no,
excellent
It's
question.
totally
Yeah.
legit, like, we get it, it's just like,
And I think that's why the committee is here.
right.
Think of creative solutions. Do you run it every year? Do you run it every other year? Like, what can we do? Which is why we're here. Would you run at a time, Dr. Wolf?
I don't know.
You no longer have slots.
So there we go. There's the point two.
The projector is disconnected. Okay, projector, hold on a minute.
Yeah, a number of the classes that are on the stacking list have been stacked, like even since I was in high school, so.
Right.
I mean, the question is, like, some of the ones that appear as low enrollment, French 1 and 1 honors have been stacked in this building for 4 years now. I mean, so, like, if we're gonna run them that way, I would love to see us put something in the program of studies that says, you know, these often run together, here's what the regular class is, here's what the honors requires, what the extra, not just saying there's more stuff, but saying what the actual expectations of a kid in honors is over the regular, because I think we'd get more kids choosing the honors version if they know that they're gonna be together anyway. And they have been together for 4 years, I'm assuming they're gonna stay together for eternity.
Could you, I didn't catch what you, I was wrestling with. the-
What I'm saying is, French 1 and French 1 honors have run together now 4 years. They've been stacked in this building. It would be great to put in the program of studies, this is French 1, this is French 1 honors, the extra expectations, so that when somebody's signing up, they know exactly what they're signing up for. So, like, in music, when you do honors, you know you have to write a paper, you have to do extra ensembles, you have to compete. Like, we could do the same thing with art. You could have a portfolio, you could do a test, we could do a little art show of those kids, which give them the honors credit. But like, it would be great to have that communicated and not just say it's more and deeper than French 1, but French 1 honors, these are the expectations. This is the work you need to do. Because I think you'd have more kids take it knowing that they're together. And I think the expectation should be that they're going to be together.
It's good.
Yeah, I hear you, I hear you. Again, a set of travel courses. And that's sort of what I have, like, you've got all these, you know, you can download all of them, like, you can see all the detailed recommendations. That's how we approached staffing this year. Set of, you know, staffing framework, a set of principles, and then tried to sort of balance out, how do you make sure smallest class sizes in English 1, English 2, early math, how do you, it's better to stack than to have singletons, group things together, and then give meaningful trade-offs to kids when they exist.
That's great.
And it feels like generally, you know, the courses we chose not to run are also the courses that did not have a lot of requests.
So what's
I
interesting.
feel for those 5 students who wanted to do concert orchestra, but it was only 5 students.
Yes, but it's,
It's 5 students.
but in that specific, yeah, in that specific thing, it's classical music training. Either you get it in your high school with ensemble and orchestra to get scholarship into college, or you have a financially doable family that can
Right.
afford to supplement your education outside of school.
Did we look at offering them the opportunity to spend a half day in the other building so that they could participate? I mean, I don't know what the options would be. I mean, when we're running geometry and construction at, what was the number this year?
14 course requests.
14 course requests, so it'll probably end up 10 kids, 2 periods with 2 teachers. That is the same as what we're asked, but like the orchestra, 5 kids ended up in orchestra. 2 periods with 10 kids with 2 teachers is the same.
But isn't, I don't mean to interrupt, but isn't geometry and construction given one of those classes that's going to be required or is on
It
the
fulfills
for the
a
state?
math requirement.
But I remember reading something that Stale, Illinois, maybe they changed it, I don't know, you know, everything's changing all the time. That that's one of the courses that they are looking to,
For the PACE framework?
yeah.
We
It's
still have
part
some
of-
work to do to develop the career pathways.
Mhm.
So it might be able to be part of a pathway. And career pathways will be required that schools offer them, but they will not be required that students participate in them.
So when you look at the list of low request courses that are not running, how many of these have not run the last couple of years? How many do we see that over and over don't run?
I don't have that information in front of me.
That's an important piece, because like digital literacy, we haven't run, because we ran it once, maybe? Yeah, there's a lot on here we see every single year. And then you've got internship and at the other, so Central runs internship and South runs business work experience. How similar are those two classes?
There's a fair amount of complexity fundamentally, I agree with your point that they're not that different. There's a fair amount of traditional complexity around this.
Well, one is running at one school and one is running at the
Right.
other school.
Yep.
Like, and we have
Yep.
a few
Yep.
requests at each school for the other's
Yep.
program. How,
Yep.
like math modeling, I don't think we've run it. It was a new class after alignment. Actually, that animation class is new since alignment. It ran for the first time this year. The digital video used to be in the art department and got moved to tech, but we overlap so much. What's the difference between graphic design and graphic communication? Like, should we be looking at like alternating years? One year we do the tech ed department, the other year we do the art department. And so you could do both digital video and animation as a different year, because we're never gonna be able to run them both, because we're never gonna have enough kids, they're too similar.
And staggering those courses, you know, every other year is definitely gonna be a consideration from the committee, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, that
From
was
the
a,
administration
at the previous meeting,
recommendation.
we talked about that as
Yeah.
as something that we probably ought to recommend. And I think we can and should have the conversation about when do we start calling personal relationships in facts, for instance. just
It
to
hasn't
pick-
run 1920 through now.
Right, to pick a course there, like we could start, you know,
I got notes.
Every
be
other
more
decade.
aggressive about calling things.
Well, and I
So-
think like for courses like interior design and housing, so I'll pick that one because that was kind of our personal experience. I don't know how, if it ran last year, but I know this year, looking at this, I mean, that's again, another course that could potentially be 2 years back to back that didn't run, or at least was limiting, right, in that context. But if you run it and you decide to run it every other year, you explicitly put that in the course
Yeah,
guide.
right.
That allows kids to plan ahead.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that we've been talking a lot about at our house is, you know, when our kids are starting high school, we kind of sit down and we do just a very general, like, 4-year plan. Like, okay, you're going in, here are your core classes. What are you interested in the electives that are offered at the school? And what courses stand out to you down the road as ones you really want to take? Because some of those require prerequisites that you have to take as a freshman and a sophomore, right? But oftentimes our counselors, who are incredible, but they're sitting down with so many kids, you're working through it so quickly, you're kind of thinking about, okay, freshman year, we're jotting this down, and we make some quick decisions, and then sophomore year rolls around and it's like, oh, but I had planned to take this, but now I can't take it because freshman year I opted not to take whatever, right? I split apart pre-engineering 1 and pre-engineering 2 because I was exposing myself to different topics, and as a result, when I got to sophomore year, it's running the same semester as the other elective that I had because this was my career pathway that I'm heading down and considering. And so now it's like, okay, well, let's figure it out. We don't find out until basically the end of, so when they come back and you pick your courses, right? You find out at the end of that year whether or not you got into the course. At that point, everyone else has selected their electives. you're left with whatever electives there are, a handful of 4 3 courses that fit with your schedule, that don't fit with your interests, period. And now we're pigeonholing our kids into trying to figure out how to finesse a schedule that works for them, that's no longer even interesting. But if you had told us beforehand when we're planning everything, that we have a course that alternates every
Right.
other year, or we have prerequisites that only run one semester and the same other elective runs the same semester, and I only get one elective period a year, then, you know, as parents and families, we can work with our kids to try to figure that out. So I feel like some of these, I don't know if I'm making sense or not, but I feel like some of these issues can be addressed simply by extrapolating in the course guide when courses are offered, whether they're limited by semester. So if interior design and honor and housing is only a second semester course, tell us it's only a second semester course, because, or whatever it may be. And then we can work with our kids to figure some of that out ahead of time.
It's fair enough.
I hear, I think, 4 recommendations. in this.
Possibly, there are a few, and I have one more.
I wrote them down.
So, one is to alternate years and publicize that and come up with some mechanism to do
Mhm.
that. 2 is to add clarity around what the prerequisites are in the program of study.
To a certain extent, I think those are listed.
My hunch is that they're listed, so I
listed.
wasn't quite sure if that's what, but let's note that as like, there may be some work to do around clarifying prerequisites.
So, sorry, the point wasn't clarifying the prerequisites, the point is spending the time perhaps with the students, if we can add that to the conversation they're having with counselors, so that if the plan is that I'm taking this course as a prerequisite, and maybe it's a part 1, part 2, and whatever, like just making sure that the counselor understands that, hey, I'm doing this now, but my eye's really on this course that opens up for me as a sophomore or a junior, and my choices as a freshman impact whether or not I'll be able to take it, even if I'm aware of the prerequisites. It's the spacing of when you decide to take those classes.
Number 3 was to, let's say, like sort of dig into the counselor / course planning black box and sort of do some work to understand what that really looks like. I think our counselors are also great.
They're wonderful.
I also am not sure how much time they can or should spend with each student individually on their course sequence. I know that there are other schools that have more elaborate solutions to do those sorts of, to do that kind of work that would require some bigger changes here that we could explore, but sort of figuring out what that counselor, parent, student course planning looks like, you know, how robust are the 4-year course plans? Oh, come on. To do that. That was 3, I forgot number 4, sorry.
No, that's okay.
Um,
So I would, if is it appropriate to just elaborate another suggestion for the counselor?
You're a community
I don't know, I mean, I don't
representative. You
know
can
if-
do it.
I don't wanna
It's-
take over
It's
the
totally
meeting.
appropriate. You can do whatever you want, Chair.
I mean, I wonder if there may be an opportunity to collaborate with the feeders on this as the kids are working through and going through their 8th grade year. They're getting introduced to the high school. They're starting to think about the courses. They're overwhelmed by a lot of it, but there also is, I think, room for the kids to work maybe with the high school, with the middle schools directly. They have counselors as well. There's maybe some things that, you know, we can provide as a district in terms of just frameworks that parents can download and use, and maybe there's a way to upload it. So like if I choose to do a 4-year plan with my child, my, you know, incoming freshman, I can upload that file ahead of time so that when the counselor is meeting with my kid, they have an idea of like, look, this kid has thought ahead and maybe this is a consideration that I need to talk through with them. And if another student doesn't want to do that, that's totally understandable. Different kids are in different places, but perhaps there are some tools that we can put in place so we're not adding more to the plate of our counselors, but we are considering how we can help support the kids who have taken the time to think ahead for whatever range of reasons that may be. And the other thought I had is, you know, I know that, you know, for freshmen, a lot of the opportunity for electives before you get locked into kind of a track, some sort of track, a lot of those opportunities, and I don't know if other parents feel the same way, I feel like are accessible much more readily schedule-wise as freshmen. And so if you want to dabble and play around with different fields and explore, you know, I like art, I like business, I like, you know, whatever it may be, I wonder if there may be some opportunities to take some of the electives that are labeled as sophomore and higher and start some of those for freshmen who might be interested, like, for example, the interior design one that I was talking about. I don't know, my kids haven't taken that course, but just, I don't know if there's a specific rationale as to why that's specifically starting for sophomores and not potentially for freshmen, and perhaps there are some other courses and departments that could look like that also.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah, as we're getting into the PACE framework, we're gonna see career paths developing, and it's been kind of interesting looking at other schools' programs and studies, because, you know, you have an anchor class like Intro to Business that you take before you take any of the other business classes, and they have a 4-year, like, here are your options each year. It would be really nice to see something like that, see something that we send out to feeders with one page that has all of the different opportunities in electives in like a format that makes like more sense. Here are the ones you can take. There's fewer opportunities as a freshman, so they're closer to the center, and then moving out with, you know, you could go architecture, you can go engineering, you can go something else from the tech ed part. So it kind of shows you all the options that are available, that you don't have to dig through the whole program of studies to figure it out.
Like a
I mean,
pathway.
as the PACE framework work moves ahead, and like, again, we're just starting that with 9th graders this coming fall, I suspect you will start to see changes in how the program of study is organized, and you will start to see, here's a recommended path if you want to focus on art or music, and here's a recommended path if you want to sort of do a jack of all trades sort of thing. Here's a path if you really know you want to do medicine or STEM, and to do that. Not to lock kids in, but to sort of provide stories for students and families to think about.
I just have one more question. So we're prioritizing English and math for grade 9 and 10, but those pretty much are every period of the day. So like if a kid wants to be in interior design and that's something, like, is there a way we can make that their first thing that goes into their schedule? Is there a way, could we create something that says, like, I'm going the interior design and architecture direction, so that that would be a class that they actually get, as opposed to prioritizing their English and math, which then may make it so they can't take the
This is a
interior design.
prioritization around staffing
Staffing,
numbers.
okay.
It's not a prioritization about course availability.
Okay.
And on the other end, can't you like partner with like College of DuPage for like symphony, those 4 students? Is there something they could do with College of DuPage? College of DuPage is, you know, another resource that they can maybe, I know they do some things already. By sophomore year, they're looking at nursing and I don't know, whatever else is, mechanics. Aren't there some ways to let them know, hey, we're gonna drop these classes off. You might be willing to pick them up for summer or some other way, right? Just letting them know. I don't know what new solution could come from that, but the whole idea is you have a whole other system that you can maybe turn to when you know that it won't be offered here, right? Some other avenues.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, good information. Moving on, are we good? Move on?
If you're good, I'm good.
Yes, sir. Moving on to 3.3, the Simple Tally process. Simple Tallies is the name for the raw course request counts that are collected from students and families in the winter prior to the staffing and scheduling processes. This year's Simple Tallies were completed on February 11th, 2025, and the data point was preserved. We will discuss the data to understand how this information is recorded and used during the staffing and scheduling processes.
Okay, I'm gonna download another PDF. And throw that up here so you all can see this. So, this is very raw data. It has a nice header on it and a nice top there, but this is very raw data. Let me tell you what a simple tally is. When students make their course requests, we record what those requests are. And then when that process is done and before we start doing anything with it, this year, we lock that information down and we call that now the simple tallies. And we did that on February 11th. So this means, and there's, I don't know, about a gazillion pages of things here. But this means there were 16 central simple tallies for French 1. RG, it's a regular level course. That's what that means.
8 students, or is it 16 students? It's 8 students for 2 semesters?
I don't know the answer.
I'm assuming that's what the second French one is for, the second.
Yeah, probably, you're probably right.
That was
Yeah,
my guess.
yeah, I suspect you're right,
Oh,
yeah.
there are.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the.
So it is 16 kids.
Yeah, yeah. So it is my understanding that in the past, we haven't always locked that down and formalized that. When this information's in Infinite Campus, our student information system, and there's a variable called a requested count, and that number changes as during the master scheduling process, which again happens after staffing, and as courses are eliminated or people sort of, we're trying to fit kids into the other courses that they may have not made their first choice with. But this represents the raw amount of what students are choosing. And there's a lot of courses that kids are choosing. So we wanted to make sure you saw this and sort of understood how this works. The numbers in parentheses on the fancy slides that we shared with the board, those were all representing what the simple tallies were. So what the raw course requests from students are. And this is some pretty raw data. Like, there's some, we didn't do any cleaning up on this. There's probably a few places we should have cleaned up and we didn't, but we're sharing it with you so you see the dirty work.
So could we add a field that records why courses are denied so that you can track it year to year? So like we know in these tallies, we probably have already eliminated the courses that aren't running due to low enrollment, but there should be some way to record that kids had signed up for something different and that we're on to the second choice or the third choice.
We can consider that. We can consider it. I worry about the workload that would entail, but we can certainly consider it.
Because there's multiple reasons you're denied. You're denied because the class is full, there's not enough kids and the class didn't run, it's a course conflict, that something else. I mean, it would be interesting to capture why. So a kid who goes to TCD half day, if a class they want is offered only in the afternoon when they're gone, like that's a very different denial than a denial like for somebody who's there in the building the whole day.
That would have to be something as part of the master scheduling process. And I don't want to preempt the chair, but we might at the next meeting have a discussion
Yep.
about how that mastering scheduling process works. But that would have to hear, the simple tallies is just the raw requests, and that's how that comes in. But I've noted it, it's like something we can think about. Like if there's 7 or 8 options to tell each counselor, tell the API for every time you move a kid, you have to tag 1 through 7, I worry that that will quickly become cumbersome, but we're not saying no.
So have we denied kids classes other than the classes that are not running due to low enrollment? Because last year at this time, we had already told kids classes were full, and I think it was an error. Have we told kids that they didn't get classes already?
Yes.
Other than ones that are not running?
That I don't know about.
Okay.
But the ones that are not running, I already knew.
The ones that are not
February.
running have happened, like, we're in the midst of scheduling right now. I don't have an update on exactly where we are in scheduling. We're trying to get those all figured out. It wouldn't surprise me if some of those conversations have started to have, where we say, look, we can't get all the
It
courses we
happened,
wanted, but.
they already went out, like emails went out, requests for
Right.
back.
Right, no, I
in
know that, I
February.
know some of that has already happened, yeah, for some of those, yes.
I just quickly added up the grand total of the tallies. I did a quick pivot table, and it's like 8.7 class requests at Central and 7.9. So why do we have so many more course requests than we have kids? Or do we have more classes? I mean, I accounted for early bird and a few of the after school. I mean, do we have more periods in the day that I don't know about?
I don't know. Okay. Yeah.
Wait, what are you saying? There's 8.7 and
So
7.9?
if you take the number, grand total of the tallies, which I have is 42,139, and we have 4,829 kids, it comes out to 8.7 classes per kid, full year classes per kid.
It was my understanding that you would not have that, this would not be an exact match because kids will sometimes request additional classes knowing this
Right,
is my
and
first.
So this
thing.
has more than just their first request in the tallies?
And well, it must.
I believe it does, yes, and don't panic. We may ask at one school more requests than another school.
Okay. Well, it
So
looks
that
like
may be
at
something that
Central, we
happens
have a
at
lot
Central
more
that doesn't happen at
requests.
South, yes.
Because I know we had to do
Yeah.
a secondary class for any elective, so those must be included in
Yeah, we
this.
had to do that, so.
Makes sense. So I guess this actually leads into a discussion of, we're talking about course availability, but there's another piece to this, which is student availability and kids that are in sheltered programs, kids that go to TCD, kids leaving the building early or coming late. What is the real number of students available to take classes? And for those kids that choose to do TCD, are we ensuring that the classes that are important to them are available to them the opposite part of the day? Since they're out of our hands for half the day, it would be nice to give them what they want in the time that they're with us.
The counselor should probably be aware of that when they look at the schedule, saying, well, we definitely need to get you in these classes.
Got your graduation
And-
requirements, yeah.
Yeah, so they would
Yeah.
probably
Yep.
prioritize that.
But they wouldn't include the singletons, because the singletons are run not in reference to which kids it is. Singletons are run to maximize the number of kids who request them as opposed to specific kids. We don't have a
But remember
seniority.
that, you know, TCD kids don't have a lot of other electives, because TCD takes the place of most of their electives, so the TCD kids, by and large, not exclusively, are gonna be taking their core graduation requirements.
We've had kids not be able to get into their math class when they're at TCD. So like, we just, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a thing to look
Yeah.
at. We gotta look at who the kids are, because when you look at the numbers that Bill Walsh gave us, that 10% of the courses at Central are denied, but 20% of the kids have those denials, it means those kids are getting 4 denials. 4 full period
Yeah.
denials, like,
Yeah.
so, like, we should share the amount that kids are not able to get what they want. You shouldn't have a kid who half their schedule they can't get.
I think the other piece to that I wonder if it plays into it is, my gut tells me that a lot of the courses that are on the cut list are your upper class, one semester courses versus the year-long courses, right? And so I think that that's another thing to consider and to look at, because, you know, it's just, I think that can impact it as well. And so what is the goal? Is the goal that we're just, you know, ensuring every kid has something, or are we ensuring that the kids have access to the courses that they're trying to figure out, again, when we're looking at career pathways and exposure
Yep,
to what they
yep.
want? And likely some of this overlaps with what Kim's talking about, in terms of, you know, if you're spending half the day somewhere else, and maybe you're putting in your core classes, but there's the elective piece in there as well, the second half of the day. You know, the one semester stuff tends to fall much more quickly than if you have to commit to a year-long elective course, because your schedule's locked in that way versus.
Mike, it's a tough question to answer, but do you think a lot of these denials are one semester? I mean, I know there's a million pages here, there's like 38, but,
If you go back to those main charts, I
Yeah.
think you can see it
I
there.
mean, to the extent we did that
Yes.
2-year, that every other year staggering, and/or,
It's not.
Like digital literacy,
Yeah.
one semester,
Yep.
clothing and construction, I imagine those are all.
Yeah, there's only a few. There's physics, I think that was requested this year that was, oh no, it was last year that it didn't run. There's a few. Integrated algebra and geometry honors didn't run, isn't gonna run. There's
Yep.
just a handful there for
Yep.
later.
So again, like, to me, I wonder if some of this is also a conversation around opening some of that up to freshmen, where they get access to that earlier on. Obviously, some of those were, you know, second, third, you know, you're building on whatever you had as a freshman, but maybe there's some we can work with kids to kind of get a feel, like, hey, is this something you're thinking of continuing in, right? And like planning ahead in terms of courses that may have interest, maybe when you're looking at alternating years and offering them, if we get enough kids to take whatever it was, digital imaging or whatever, their freshman year, then the next year, you know, you skip a year, and then you run the second one, that alternating year. So everyone's planning ahead to try to figure out how to fit it in and how to make sure that we can run the courses for those students.
And I mean, I think it would be helpful to look and see what overlaps, because we did make decisions about classes saying this one's similar.
Right.
And could we merge them in some way instead of saying, okay, we're gonna run this one, but not this one? Because the tech ed class, the video production, has been in that building for a really long time. Animation, I don't even know if it's running right now. I mean, it's new to the building. And that's a great class at South, and they didn't have video production. I mean, is it a trade-off? Is it one school runs video production, one runs video and animation? Because it's what the teachers are,
Or do we just make a course called video?
right, and make it a full year then, and have half of it animation and half of it production. Like, that would help us out, I think, a lot, to have one class. Good idea.
It is.
This master schedule timeline doc that was presented at HR committee says they begin to meet with students in May to talk about conflicts.
I think last year.
Unless
that's
they're
what
ahead
happened for
of
us.
time.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
what she said.
So they're already running the modeling currently of how many kids are getting what they want. And it's just, it would be interesting. So like I know band kids get their band because that's first. But what if a kid wants to do engineering? And that's really what matters to them most. Like maybe we put something as another field, of course I want another field in your form, but that says this is the kid's priority. These are the things that really matter to me this year. So if you want interior design, and that's like what you're basing your whole schedule on, why wouldn't we just give them that and then build everything around that?
It's something we can think about, but I think, remember, we are obligated to, I believe we are obligated to ensure kids are ready for their ideal future when they graduate, which means prioritizing the graduation requirements and making sure students get those first.
Yeah, but you have them, you can take English any period of the day. You can only take interior design one period of the day if it's offered at all. I mean,
But if you say if interior design is your priority, then you wouldn't want to prioritize that over taking a graduation requirement. That's my point.
No, and I don't think that's what Kim is arguing. I think the example you used was band and an elective, for example, right? And so, but.
because that's where you feel, I mean, seriously, band is where my kids felt like they belonged. And if somebody wants to do engineering or architecture or interior design, that's gonna make them wanna get in our building more than necessarily the graduation requirements. So why wouldn't we try and ensure they get that thing that makes them excited?
So you're speaking more to prioritizing the fill of that class according to which child it's more important.
Right, the person
Right,
who's
is it-
prioritized it instead of the one who goes, oh, I couldn't take this and I couldn't take that and I couldn't take that.
Or,
So
hey,
I'll
it would be
take this
cool
one."
to take this next year.
Right, but
Right.
give it something that says, you know, this is what's important to me. So there may be kids that don't do any electives and they stay all in core content, but they go, oh yeah, but I really want to take 2 science classes. So then we know if they want to take 2 science classes, we're building around that, not putting the one in, and if the second one fits, fitting it. I mean, my senior, who graduated 3 years ago, had 3 study halls in PE, his senior schedule, because nothing fit. And nobody knew what to put in. And so, like, if we knew what mattered to kids, it would help.
And you don't find out what doesn't fit until it's made.
It's too late.
And then you've got 3 classes to pick from. One is, I don't know, diving and the kids never stepped in a pool throughout their high school. And they're like,
That's a different problem.
I mean,
Yeah.
no, meaning, anyway.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean, like, it's like, that's not their
Way
interest,
off.
period.
Way
But
off.
it's like, I have to pick between this and culinary and a study hall, and it's like, well, that had, none of those fit any of my interests. Had you told me back in February or December, whenever we're picking classes, that, look, we need you to think about this a little bit more, because the likelihood of this course running may not be there, or this course runs the second semester the same time as this course that you've also selected runs second semester, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But you can figure it out and put those electives in ahead of time. The problem, I think, doesn't seem to be in the core classes, right? Like, everyone ends up where they need to be for their graduation requirements, which is as it should be, right? We're prioritizing the courses that need to be there. We're prioritizing the academics that each kid needs to hit. But the electives bring our kids to school, and so how can we help encourage them to explore those interests a little bit more deeply, just through some forward thinking?
So practically, what you guys are saying is, if I'm hearing it right, is to allow a different parameter in the spreadsheet, so to speak, a new column,
Right.
which would be assigned a value perhaps that would say 1, which could be for interior design. And in the example where only 7 kids signed up for interior design, to the extent the administration could observe, we had 26 ones for this. Let's figure out a way to group them together, because then we'll get more than 7 kids signing up for it. Something like that? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, and then they would also move together. So like in band, our kids just move through the
Yeah.
process together. if somebody comes in and they want to do architecture, they would move through the sequence. I mean, it's the career pathway stuff. I mean, and it's all coming,
Right,
and it's
it'll
coming in
build-
spades.
It'll build out with the.
We're a little behind, but like, we could put that field in right now for kids that, you know, that was their priority, this is what they want to do. But I think the 4-year plan going into the computer is a really good idea. When my daughter came in, everybody had a 4-year plan. There were no surprises, you changed the class if you had to, but that was a great thing to have, as a 4-year plan
Yeah.
from day one.
We had a 4-year plan and we had 5 minutes with a counselor. So we didn't get a chance to say, hey, can you just make sure these choices match with what next year may
Wow.
look like? So, you know, some things can be
Mm-hmm.
avoidable.
Is there a 4-year plan in Central now, or no?
It's
Not that I'm
as
aware
robust
of,
as it ought to be.
Yeah.
not in an official sense.
And,
Yeah.
and
There's-
to be
there's
fair,
some
I
stuff
don't
there,
think
but
every
it's
kid
not
is ready for it.
Right.
Some
Right.
kids and families, the idea of coming in and thinking beyond just this year is insanely overwhelming, and that's okay too. So
It's okay to
I'm
change
not
your
trying, it's, yeah, and
Right.
absolutely okay to change your mind and explore and do all that. So I understand it's a delicate balance that
Sure.
they're walking and trying to figure out. And
But at least they could express their interest, right?
Right.
So you would have an idea
Some
of
rank it.
where the interest is when the students are entering. What captures their attention, what is important to that student body?
And the counselor could ask at the, you know, their sophomore planning, you know, are you still, like, is
Yeah.
that still what you're interested in? Is there something else, you know?
'Cause it
It adds
changes.
another really good level.
Thank you, it's good information. All right, I will, if we're okay, I'm gonna move on to 3.4. We will now review data about the 24-25 course enrollments with the goal of a common understanding of the differences that exist between campuses.
Okay, let me do my routine again. Download a document, I'm gonna download, just keeps going back. Okay, more raw data for you wonderful people. So, this is as of April 15th, so while you all were rushing to the post office to mail your taxes, Keith and I were arguing about this information. So this is a poll from Infinite Campus that lists the current courses that are running and the number of students enrolled. School, department, the course number, the course name, regular or honors, the semester, and the students that are enrolled. And we couldn't quite figure out I'm gonna just say
You did
this,
great.
Deb, look at me, like, we couldn't quite figure out a way to get this to you in an Excel document, which is something we're working on. But that's where that is. And then what I did, again, this is as of April 15th, is I just made a simple pivot table in Excel to list by department, course name, number, how many students had enrolled in the course at Central and at South. I'll warn you, there's a little sloppiness here around the term. Are these semester 1 or semester 2 or full year courses? There's some messiness here about courses that are designated for multilingual learners. There are some messiness around, this doesn't show stacking. There's a lot of messiness in all of this information. However, I do think it provides a nice, the reason I wanted to show this to you was it provides a nice way to try to get a common understanding with you all and with us about which courses are actually running at which campus and which ones aren't. So for instance, this tells me we got 18 kids in Animation and Video Art 1 at Central and 18 at South. This tells me that AP Studio Photography, we got nobody doing that at Central right now, and 7 kids at South. They're listed twice here because these are, for some reason, this is a semester 1 and a semester 2, and there's different course numbers for that. I don't quite understand what the 03 trailing number is either in Ceramics 1, but this gives you a general sense for how that works for all these departments.
What's the difference between zeros and blanks?
I was afraid someone was going to ask that. It's a great question. The computer science in me is that I think it's actually a vestige of how I crafted the pivots, but I can double check that.
That's a lot of information.
So, for making it easier, we know ceramics 2 and 3 are always stacked. Why wouldn't you just make it a ceramics 2, 3, and then we know it's stacked? And the first time you take it, you get credit for 2, and the second time you take it, you get credit for 3.
That would require a change in the program of study.
Well,
'cause
that's what
this
we're
is-
talking about eventually, right?
We can, but this is like, this again, this is why it's showing up here right now.
Yeah, I mean, it would make things simpler, I think, for everyone if it was like combined, like currently Latin is Latin 3-4. And, I mean, that helps everyone.
Yep.
And we will have access to this after this meeting if we just want to take a look at it.
Do it right now.
Okay.
It's all
I can
public.
send
yeah.
you-
Oh, no, right,
It's all
you mean like, we can still, so we can
The
still
whole
look at
world
it
has
after.
access to this. Oh my goodness, like people all over the country are like
I found
Of
falling over
course.
themselves to dig
Of
into
course,
this.
that's,
Yeah.
that's the hobby.
Some people's out.
I don't mean to be too flip, just a little bit, sorry.
I did not mean that.
It's a good hobby, Kim, I'm not knocking it, I love it.
I just,
Yeah, no, but this is that, you guys have, I admit the format is a little bit clunky, but we put a report out with this same data. A bunch of people got super angry. Part of the reason was we had a couple transcription errors there, but a small number. Part of the reason was we also had a file that had a variable called requested count in there, which people thought was a simple tally, but it wasn't. Instead, it's an internal vestige used in master scheduling. I probably contributed to that confusion. But this, take some time, study it, come back to the next meeting with questions, or shoot me and the committee some questions about the data here. To me, this is important because I think as a community, we need to be really clear about what courses really are running at each campus and which ones are not. And this is a clean way to do this. And, just looking at the art, yes, there are some classes that are running at South and not running at Central. But the differences between the two campuses, at least in art, are not very big, in my opinion. You could look at, I don't know, pick another, I messed up the page breaks.
And it actually doesn't matter because they're 3s, not 2 3s. The class is running. If we call it ceramics 2, 3, you still have the kids in it. It's
Yeah.
the third level doesn't run at Central.
Yeah, so, I mean, again, it's a way to sort of help, I think, get the community to start to understand, that's part of this question, are the differences between campuses and as measured by course offerings, are they really, really big? Or are they sort of at the margins? And this gives us a path to have that kind of discussion. You'll see, look, we run a multilingual algebra this year at Central. We're punching up the ML program at South, that stuff's coming, so you can see some of these differences are things we're tracking.
So are we gonna keep the block classes, or are those going away? The like
I
algebra
think
2?
those have already, I
They're
think this
out
is
of
the
the-
last year, like, this is they've been stricken out of the program of study.
Have we evaluated the class that is catching people up then?
Which classes catch, what do you mean?
Algebra and geometry honors, is that, are we sure that they're getting the 2 years content?
We are not sure about that.
So maybe,
Because I really, the block classes were very successful.
put it-
I mean, and they were about 80 kids a year.
What does that mean, block?
So they have algebra, they have geometry the first half of the year for 2 periods every day, back to back. So they finish geometry the first half of the year, and the second half they take algebra 2 trig. So it catches them up. So as, they can do it freshman year or sophomore year so that they can get to calculus as seniors.
Okay, so
It was one of many math acceleration paths we have.
and so you're stopping that? Is that possible?
They don't,
In this year's program of study, there is only a course called Algebra 2/Trig Block S2.
and you have the geometry block 1, semester 1. 22 kids are in it.
Geometry Block S1. Yeah, I think
I think it's the
these
same
two,
22 kids.
these two dovetail,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, thank you for that. It's a lot of information there. Okay, we will move on. So thank you to the community representatives for engagement in our discussion. The last item in our agenda is for the A&O committee member discussion only. I'm going to ask my 2 committee members, is there any input for discussion at this moment? Jeff?
Something I just asked Deb, Mike, is for the concert orchestra at South, are they offered the ability to travel? Or is that per course, per section? Obviously, it's dependent upon interest and demand, but has that ever played out where we could accommodate that with travel?
Hold on a minute. So it was not listed as one of the recommended courses for students to travel this year. I'd have to go ask the team to figure out why.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Has that ever played out in the district where South and Central kids are cruising back and forth to do music stuff that you're aware of?
The only one is AP Music Theory. I mean, you could put.
That you're
lunch
aware of?
4th period. Yeah, I mean, but for years.
Yeah.
You can see it in the master schedule if they move. And I think AP Music Theory is the only one I see.
You know, that music is going to be a challenge for this work. You know, our sending districts have different music opportunities, which plays out in what our students want to do music-wise.
Can I ask you a quick question?
You just did. I used to be a
AP
classroom
Music
teacher.
Theory,
I used to be
AP
a
Music
classroom teacher.
Theory, if we offer it alternating years, and it's 1 year at Central, the other year at South, could we give a PE exemption so a kid could double up their music class if we don't give a PE exemption otherwise?
We dropped language to double
Yeah,
music.
but you shouldn't have to drop language to get AP Music Theory. I mean, like, we ought to find a way to help kids, especially those kids that are on their way to music school. It's a class you have to have basically to go to music school, because everybody else has gotten it, and we don't teach theory in our classes because our classes are too big. So that's a consideration.
I mean, like, anything's possible. Like, I'm not sure, like, to be honest, that sounds like something that we should study pretty carefully. I'm not quite sure how we would justify to the state waiving PE so kids could take music theory, but we could think about it.
Well, what if we were to do, like, I mean, I homeschooled 1 year. I had to have a log that showed my son was active. I mean, kids can do things on their own that proves that they're physically active, but taking AP Music Theory on your own is not the same as being in a class, working with other people and composing music and playing with each other. It's just not the same. Anybody can be physically active.
I hear what you're saying. I think we should, I think, I have a lot of thoughts and comments here. I'm sure Deb and the other committee members have tons of notes too. Like, over the next few weeks and months, and I'm looking to Chair Ramon, like, I think part of the work of this group will be to distill the questions and comments into a set of recommendations. We should be tactical about those recommendations. Some we could maybe do for fall 2026. Others may take a few years to sort of figure out. If we're upending our data structures in Infinite Campus, like, that takes a fair amount of work and time. So we'll have to figure out what do we want to prioritize and to do when. But that, I think, will be part of this group to think through, right?
Yeah. No, I think the benefit of this committee is to, per the committee's name, is to identify, opportunities that are absent and availabilities that otherwise could become more available. Some of these things we're taking, obviously, detailed notes on and discussing, in the next couple of weeks when everyone gets a chance to go through some of this data. I think one path of the committee is, at some point, Mike, to provide, creative solutions, whether it's every other year or some things are travel. But I also think it's some of the mentions and the maintenances and the program of studies that could be more clarifying for families, so on and so forth. But I also think it's important as we, go through this work to recognize, what exactly are we seeing in the data? Are we seeing more unavailabilities, or are we seeing unavailabilities that we perhaps could align into opportunities with some of these creative solutions, but also some of the way that we're, viewing and ingesting this data to drive those. So I think it's a great place to start. It can be a fair amount of work, but I think, empowering the administrators who work with Infinite Campus and empowering families with some of this information and the PLS, all this stuff we're talking about tonight could be quite impactful for the future to minimize those anomalies that aren't available, but also to drive more opportunities for tallies that otherwise could be higher if certain information was shared differently or more.
So one thing that's interesting, so AP Music Theory, if we were to go back to that, it's gonna run this year at Central, and I don't think it's gonna run at South. If we know we're not gonna run it at Central next year, it might be a good time right now to tell kids, we're running it this year, it won't run next year, do you wanna swap to it? Before we get too far into the master scheduling, which then locks their schedules up and they can't take it. But that would be a really important thing, and telling kids at South the next year, we're gonna run it every other year, it's gonna run, I guess that would be years ending in an even year, but like, we've got an opportunity to fix some things right now even, if we decide things are gonna be every other year, and they're running now, we should tell kids, we're not gonna, most likely they won't run again until 2 years from now.
I think that'll work. Again, this is gonna be a report for the board in the summer, early fall, I believe. So,
So I have a question about
Sure.
just how we're going about this. How much line of sight is there? Is there any? And would it be helpful to have line of sight to, why do we need to recreate the wheel on everything? What do other districts do? That's why half the time I'm at board meetings, I look up and I say, well, what the hell do other districts do?
What
Right?
yeah.
We cannot be the only district that has this specific problem, or right? I mean, so what do other districts do when they have issues like this, right? Is there any line of sight to that?
Well,
Coming from another district.
I'm trying to think, since you brought that
There's
up.
that.
Yeah, yes, there are, different districts handle this in different ways. There is a vibrancy and an enthusiasm around this issue in District 86 that is different than other districts that I've been a part of or talked with. I'm optimistic, Chair Rahman, that maybe at the next meeting, Monday, May 19th, we have started doing a look at some other high schools and the number of course offerings in their program of study and their student population. I'm curious, as I said, like, and I believe that courses file that I just last showed up shows that we probably have 90-95% of the same courses offered at each campus. It's not the same, and maybe that's not good enough, but we're 90-95% there. What I'm curious about is, do other schools the size of South and Central have the same number of offerings? And what does that range really look like? Like, what does a really, really big high school, Lane Tech, for instance, what do they offer? Do they have a lot more offerings? What does a really, really small high school have? How do their numbers compare? So we're gonna try to get some of that data, sort of knock on wood, for May 19th, and I suspect we'll have a different chair by then, sadly.
Maybe he could stay on the committee.
But like, we're hoping to at least have some of that data available to look at.
Dr. Locke, can we also add to that data districts that are similar to us where they have two high schools with two different size populations? Because I think that's inherently our issue here, right? That's part of where the passion you're talking about is coming from.
It's our issue. I'm going to interrupt you, Manuel,
Please do.
because you're my friend. And that's what I do.
Go for it.
I had time to kill one day, and I literally started looking up different districts in Northern Illinois. We're not the only district with population disparities, right? Yeah, if you crack open the newspaper every day, we're the only one that everyone's ever talking about.
According to the
For
map.
obvious reasons, I
You
mean,
mean
there's
the map.
the digital
So-
newspapers, or?
Yeah, you can tell how
I digress.
But other districts have this situation. Right? Now, I don't know if I don't recall seeing that just two schools, but I recall seeing districts with 3-4 schools that there was a big disparity
I'm
in
not sure
population.
it's so relevant to look at two campus disparities. I think it's just relevant to look at one campus that has low enrollment and how do you maximize its
Sure.
opportunities. I'm not really sure, like, it doesn't matter.
I guess
I
the
don't-
way I was
I-
hearing what Dr. Locke was saying was that if we're looking at campuses with, a certain number, is what I heard you say, then
Yeah,
I worry that we find ourselves in a situation where it's like, oh, well, yeah, this model works at Central, but maybe it doesn't work at South because the number of students looks the same. So I guess that's where my suggestion is.
I hear your question. I very much believe in under-promising and over-delivering, so I'd ask for a little bit of patience.
For sure.
We may have thought about that very same question
I'm
and
sure
are
we have.
pulling and polling schools to get that kind of analysis, but let's wait until there's something more concrete that we can share.
Well, and to the administration/board's credit, as you guys saw in the data tonight, there are quite a few of, low enrollment courses we have the opportunity to approve to run. And hopefully some of this work we do we'll make the necessity to travel that path even less, because we'll be able to maximize opportunities by minimizing unavailability. So,
We're running a lot of low enrollment
right, we're
courses.
doing a lot of them.
I don't know, 95% of the course offerings are the same.
Right.
Right.
In core, it's almost 100%. Like, not saying that's good enough, but I think we have a good foundation to build,
Yeah.
and we can get better.
And as one individual here, I'm thankful for all the data you've been putting out. So a lot of this was to bring everyone up to speed, especially all the verbiage on that slide.
All
So,
the definitions that
all the
nobody's learned
definitions.
yet?
We'll have flashcards, actual cards though. Okay.
So we changed the staffing framework and we're now running, like the English electives are running low enrollment. Have we analyzed what happened when we switched from being English 3 and English 4 to being electives? Because we have a lot of those classes that are running at 15, and if we're running English at 15, it means we can't run interior design, we can't run, there's other classes that can't run. We've also done the same thing in PE. We have so many PE offerings now, and I don't know why, but we changed freshman PE is no longer 43 plus or minus 2, it's 35. Like, it doesn't make that much of a difference to a kid in PE if there are those extra kids, but it makes a huge difference to the kids in orchestra who aren't getting orchestra because we don't have the right number of kids. So, I think I found like 6 classes at Central are running under the staffing framework of the PE classes, and there's like 50 of them. It's insane that we're not living by, the system that we set up. If it's 43 plus or minus 2, we shouldn't have so many opportunities that we can't run at 43 plus or minus 2. Maybe we're offering just too much. And that, you could do tumbling every other year, you could do lifeguarding every other year, there's things like that, but so long as we're running PE, we've got PE classes running at 14 kids.
And that's where the comparisons to other districts, I'm like, are we offering too much?
Correct.
Which is complicating the,
Right, are there too many course offerings? That's
Right,
why.
and like,
Mhm.
what's the difference between FITS and
Right,
group exercise? Like, one
Yep.
was at one school, one was at the other, now we have both at both schools. Like,
Yeah.
why? Those are very, very similar.
Yep.
good point.
And
I
like
guess,
MME is running for the first time. Why do we have MME? It never came to the board, even as a class.
What is MME?
Modern Music Exploration. It's brand new. We got keyboards and stuff for it, but it's never run at Central. It's gonna run with AP Music Theory, but like, where did it come from?
well, Mike, real quick, in terms of Infinite Campus, it sounds like there are some tools and parameters to tweak, and for lack of a better word, there's some deep dive that the administration's looking to do even more to empower some of this creativity too. It's quite a robust tool that we know well and perhaps could find enhancements to it. I remember we were talking about that somewhere, about whether it's a consultant from Infinite Campus to make sure we're maximizing, which we probably already are, all of our skill sets
Data
with
mining.
Infinite Camp, yeah,
So,
and running models and back tests and whatnot.
thank you, Member Waters, for that. Chair Rahman, not to show too many of my cards, but I might
Please.
suggest that at the next
that was
committee
the next
meeting,
topic.
we have a Master Scheduling 101 presentation, so we can all sort of understand a little bit more how this process works, and how scheduling actually occurs, and the way you can set parameters and tweak parameters, and go through that. So if that's amenable to the committee,
Absolutely.
we'll work on
I think
that.
we discussed it in finance. It was a side conversation, but.
Yeah.
And they do,
we'll work on that, yeah.
and the people who do that for our district do great work.
You do.
But
Yeah, it's-
anything we can do to enhance it.
Yeah, no, but I want this group to understand what that work looks like.
Yeah.
So that would be, that
Well,
would
are
be
you
the goal.
tweaking now because you're in this? Because this committee won't see the process, and actually I would suggest this committee exists through the next sequence of getting everybody enrolled in classes so that we see the actual work, we can actually do the work that we are talking about and see how everything plays out. Why are kids denied? Are the classes, did our suggestions work? All of that.
This committee doesn't make decisions though. This committee has to come up with a
Well-
report
Fact finding
and
and.
fact finding, and then, so this is actually one of my suggestions. I bet is that,
Hold on, let me type it. Sorry, that's what I've been typing everything.
is that there was a lot of great ideas today. If we can have key takeaways in our next meeting of like what are actual tangible things that you know, the administration heard that actually we can implement, which is what you're talking to, Kim. My
Yeah.
concern is that we just can't, we have to report out to the board and then, you know, whether the board decides what actions or takeaways we take has to be, it's not under us to say like, we're doing these actions right now. We're gonna change the program studies today. Like that's not under our authority or,
Right.
you know, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, but we know that there's more power in Infinite Campus, and we're not using it as well as we could. I mean, I know
I
that
don't-
schedules used to be run the opposite direction, seniors were run first, then juniors. Now we just throw everyone in a pot, everybody's equal, and, you know, that's it. I mean,
Well, no,
it's so
remember
different.
when
So-
Marky was walking us through some of the stress testing they will do on it? They do quite a bit of work with it. I think they're maximizing
Yeah,
the
and
tool now,
Right, I guess a couple things, like, you know, we'll be real receptive. I think you'll see that we have been pretty transparent as we can be to share this. Like, I appreciate it, like, let's not jump to conclusions. I'm not sure there's a lot in Infinite Campus we're not taking advantage of yet. I feel pretty confident that our APIs are doing a pretty strong job scheduling right now. And as I said, if the chair is willing, like, we can have a discussion about how the scheduling process works. Like, let's, as a committee, like, we'll bring the evidence and the data for you to review, and we can turn that into conclusions and recommendations, and then we can together sort of decide what goes to the board. I also want to just like echo what you said, Asma. Thank you very much. Like, as I understand it, this committee exists to explore access and opportunity around courses, so that we can have a lot of voices that will make recommendations to the board. The board will govern, and me and my team will do the work. This committee is not doing that work. This committee is using your voice and using the people you represent and talk to make the best recommendations that we can. And we will have to dovetail those with the finances we have, the time we have, all those sorts of things. We're not going to be able to do everything on this list this year.
But some things might go through?
Yep,
Yeah.
Okay,
course,
there's still
of course,
chance
yeah.
for
Yeah.
some of these things
Yeah.
to pan out or
Yeah.
work or to help the,
We'll be super transparent, like, yeah, we can do it, can't do it, like,
Yeah.
we'll talk about all that.
and I think as a committee fostered by the board's, committee's recommendation to the board, we'll make a final recommendation at some point
right.
for what those things are, you know?
Right, right.
Yeah.
And, you know, if we, after having a few more conversations, realize we're not taking advantage of IC and we need to spend $500,000 on IC plus, the board will find us that money.
Yeah, referendum.
Better start.
Yeah, that was.
Better start.
Yeah.
Good luck. Startup, it'll just build it for us.
DSAP.
Yeah.
No. All right.
Is that fair? Does that make, is
Is
that?
that,
Yeah.
all right.
that's the frame, that's what we're working.
Yeah, like,
All right.
yeah.
I don't know, thank you.
And each meeting, there will be a report to the board about the discussion. And obviously then the minutes get published and all that, and the video will be up, or audio will be up by, tomorrow afternoon or whatnot.
And before each meeting, we'll send you a Scantron, old school sort of way to test all your knowledge on the definitions that were shared. We only went through briefly, but
I've
you
seen
will
those
be tested.
Scantrons, I can't believe it. I'm like, how do you still have these Scantrons?
You will be tested.
Best
I
thing ever.
can't believe it.
All right.
Yeah, after the struggles we had with ACT, we might want to go back to those, but that's for another story.
Right?
school,
No,
that's
my
for
son
another
was telling
story.
me the calculator didn't work.
Yeah.
Really?
Welcome
So
to
yes,
my
his
world.
calculator did not work, and he guessed the last 10 questions of the 40 questions for the math section.
Oh dear.
I said, okay, what could I reached out, and they basically said, oh, this is just, a pre-ACT, it's a practice.
We're learning.
Ultimately, it's a practice, so there's no makeups, if you're absent, whatever, so we're letting it slide. But I said, okay, I just let you know what's out there,
Right.
right? I don't know if it'll skew the results for the entire school, or at least the math section, if the calculator's not working,
What grade is your,
freshman.
those results don't affect our rating.
We're
All
okay, yeah.
I'll move on. Let's keep us on
Thank
track.
goodness.
With our discussion complete, the April 2025 A&O committee meeting is adjourned at 8:16 PM. Thank you, everybody, for coming.